Good morning, everyone. Let's begin with a simple truth. People don't follow what you say, they follow what you do. Leadership isn't about titles or power, it's about behavior. It's about how you show up every single day. If you're rushed, distracted, and reactive, your team learns that chaos is the culture. If you're consistent, calm, and curious, they learn that steadiness is the standard. How you lead becomes the blueprint for how they perform. You see, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. When your team sees you take ownership, they feel safe to take risks. When they see you admit mistakes, they feel permission to be honest. When they see you listen, they learn to speak up. Every leader casts a shadow, and that shadow shapes the environment your team works in. If your shadow is filled with fear, people will play it safe. If it's filled with trust, people will innovate, collaborate, and grow. So, ask yourself, are you leading with intention? Are you modeling the performance you want to see? Because here's the truth. Excellence isn't demanded, it's demonstrated. Accountability isn't enforced, it's embodied. Culture isn't what's written on the wall. It's what's lived in the hall. How you lead is how they will perform. Leadership is not defined by a title, position, or a set of credentials. It's defined by the behaviors, decisions, and actions that a leader consistently demonstrates. Too often, we get caught up in the idea that leadership is about being in charge or having authority over others. But in reality, true leadership is rooted in the simple, everyday actions that inspire people to follow and emulate. It's not about what you say to motivate your team. It's about how you show up and engage with them. If a leader is calm, focused, and intentional in their actions, that behavior sets the tone for everyone around them. People watch how leaders respond to challenges, how they treat others, and how they handle pressure. These actions, rather than words, shape the environment and the culture. Think about a time when you've worked with a leader who inspired you not because of their title, but because of their conduct. Maybe it was their ability to remain composed in stressful situations, or how they always showed up with integrity, regardless of the circumstances. That leader didn't just talk about teamwork, they demonstrated it in every interaction. They led by example. When people see their leader consistently practicing what they preach, they feel motivated to do the same. This is the real power of leadership, not a flashy title or grand speech, but consistent, everyday actions that communicate values and set expectations. Leaders have a responsibility to model the behavior they want to see in their teams. If a leader is consistently late, disorganized, or disengaged, those behaviors will trickle down and become normalized within the team. On the other hand, if a leader is focused, punctual, and invested in their people, the team will mirror that commitment. Leadership is not about demanding performance, it's about demonstrating it. When leaders embody the qualities they want to see, they create a sense of trust and respect. It's easier for team members to perform at their best when they see their leader consistently demonstrating the standards expected of them. Furthermore, leadership involves being present and mindful in every interaction. It's not about giving orders or expecting results. It's about cultivating an environment where individuals feel seen, valued, and supported. When a leader demonstrates care and respect for each team member, it fosters a sense of belonging and encourages a deeper level of commitment. People are more likely to give their best when they feel genuinely supported by someone who leads with empathy and understanding. In essence, leadership is not about issuing commands from the top down. It's about setting a powerful example through actions that communicate values, priorities, and expectations. The way a leader behaves becomes the foundation upon which the team's performance is built. The more aligned a leader's behavior is with the desired outcomes, the more likely it is that the team will not only understand the goal, but will also be motivated to pursue it with enthusiasm. This is the heart of leadership, actions that lead by example and inspire others to do the same. How a leader leads through consistency, integrity, and care is ultimately how the team will perform. Leadership is an active process that deeply influences the culture of a team or organization. It's not something that happens in isolation or as a result of commands from the top. Leadership is something that is experienced by everyone within the team every single day, through the presence and actions of those in charge. Leaders shape the culture by simply being who they are, how they approach their work, and how they engage with others. The way a leader shows up, both physically and emotionally, sets a tone that reverberates throughout the team, affecting how others approach their roles and interact with each other. When a leader consistently shows up in a way that reflects stability, focus, and trust, the team absorbs these qualities. The culture begins to reflect the same values. If a leader is calm under pressure, this steadiness will inspire others to remain composed in difficult situations. A leader who shows empathy and actively listens to their team will cultivate an environment where open communication and mutual respect thrive. This consistent presence communicates a sense of security and purpose. People within that environment are far more likely to perform with confidence and contribute creatively when they feel they are supported by a steady, trustworthy presence. On the other hand, if a leader shows up in a manner that reflects chaos, inconsistency, or a lack of engagement, it's likely to create an environment where confusion and fear dominate. When a leader is always distracted, always reactive, or perpetually stressed, the team begins to mirror those behaviors. The tone shifts from one of collaboration and innovation to one of survival and uncertainty. People in this environment are likely to play it safe, to avoid risks, and to wait for direction rather than taking initiative. They may become hesitant to make decisions or take ownership of their work, because they feel the weight of uncertainty that comes from a leader's inconsistent presence. It's not only the way a leader shows up emotionally that shapes the team's culture, but also their physical presence. How a leader engages in meetings, interacts with their team, and uses their time communicates priorities. A leader who takes the time to be present with their people, who listens, asks questions, and connects, sends the message that their team members matter. This doesn't happen in isolated moments or only during performance reviews. It's reflected in the leader's day-to-day actions. A leader who consistently invests time and energy into their team creates a culture where everyone feels valued and empowered to do their best work. Leadership is inherently contagious. Whether a leader realizes it or not, their actions and energy set the standard for the entire organization. If they prioritize collaboration, communication, and transparency, the team is more likely to reflect those values in their work. If they operate from a place of fear or insecurity, those same emotions will filter through the team, affecting decision-making and performance. People will pick up on the emotional climate set by the leader, and it will influence their behavior. Leadership is not only what a leader says, but how they show up in every interaction, every meeting, and every challenge. The leader's presence and actions directly contribute to the environment and, in turn, influence the performance and mindset of those who follow. When a leader takes ownership of both successes and failures, they set an example that encourages the same behavior within the team. Leadership at its core is not about passing blame or credit. It's about taking responsibility for what happens within the team and owning the outcomes regardless of the circumstances. When leaders demonstrate accountability, they create a culture where others feel empowered to do the same. It's easy to point fingers when things go wrong, to shift responsibility, or to distance oneself from mistakes. But true leaders understand that accountability is the foundation of trust and collaboration. By owning their actions, decisions, and mistakes, leaders show their team that it's safe to do the same without fear of punishment or ridicule. This ownership is especially important when things don't go as planned. In these moments, a leader's response can make or break the team's morale. If a leader refuses to take responsibility or deflects blame onto others, it creates a toxic environment where no one feels safe enough to admit mistakes or learn from them. People in such an environment become defensive, avoiding ownership and covering up errors rather than addressing them. When leaders take accountability, however, they communicate a powerful message. Mistakes are part of the process, they're human, and the key is to learn, grow, and move forward. This creates a culture of transparency, where everyone feels a shared responsibility for both successes and failures. When leaders take ownership, they also demonstrate a level of vulnerability that fosters trust within the team. Vulnerability in leadership doesn't mean showing weakness or being incapable. It means being open and honest about one's shortcomings and limitations. Leaders who acknowledge their mistakes and learn from them teach their team that it's okay to not have all the answers. But it's essential to take responsibility and work toward improvement. This approach builds a sense of psychological safety, where team members feel encouraged to step up, admit when they've fallen short, and ask for help when needed. Instead of feeling threatened by failure, they begin to see it as a natural part of growth, which leads to greater creativity, problem solving, and performance. Furthermore, when leaders take ownership of the collective success of the team, they create a sense of unity and shared purpose. Rather than taking sole credit for achievements, a leader who acknowledges the contributions of the team fosters an environment of collaboration and mutual respect. This act of ownership doesn't diminish the leader's authority, it actually strengthens it. Acknowledging that success is a collective effort makes team members feel valued, reinforces the importance of each person's role, and builds a sense of camaraderie. When people see that their leader is not just a figurehead but an active participant in both the victories and challenges, they are more likely to feel committed to the team's mission and work towards shared goals with enthusiasm. Ultimately, ownership in leadership is a powerful tool for shaping the behavior and performance of a team. Leaders who demonstrate accountability and take responsibility for both wins and losses not only set an example for others, but also cultivate an environment where everyone feels empowered to take initiative, make decisions, and hold themselves accountable. It creates a culture of trust, transparency, and continuous improvement, where people are not afraid to take risks, admit mistakes, and learn from them. In this kind of environment, performance flourishes because everyone is invested in the process, confident that their leader will be there, not just to direct, but to take ownership of the journey along with them. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as a sign of weakness, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful tools a leader can possess. When leaders demonstrate vulnerability, they create an environment where trust, honesty, and openness are the foundation. It's about showing that they are human, that they make mistakes, and that they don't have all the answers. This authentic approach to leadership does not diminish a leader's authority or capability. Instead, it reinforces the idea that leadership is about connection, empathy, and a willingness to learn, not about perfection. In fact, a leader who is willing to admit flaws and acknowledge their own mistakes invites others to do the same, creating a culture of continuous learning and improvement. When a leader shows vulnerability by admitting their own shortcomings, the team perceives them as approachable and relatable. No one likes to work in an environment where people are afraid to admit mistakes because they fear punishment or judgment. A leader who can openly acknowledge their own errors helps to break down this barrier, giving team members the freedom to take risks and be honest about their challenges. This openness fosters trust because it creates a safe space for people to be themselves without fear of being criticized or reprimanded. Team members are more likely to bring forward innovative ideas, offer feedback, and suggest improvements when they feel their leader is not only receptive, but also vulnerable enough to accept constructive criticism without taking offense. Additionally, vulnerability in leadership builds stronger relationships. People are naturally drawn to leaders who are authentic and transparent, as it makes them feel more comfortable and valued. When a leader shows genuine care for their team, acknowledges their limitations, and expresses their own struggles, it strengthens the emotional bond between them and their team. This connection is vital for creating a sense of loyalty and commitment to the team's goals. Team members are far more likely to go the extra mile when they feel that their leader is human, someone they can trust and relate to, rather than a figure of authority who is unapproachable or distant. Furthermore, vulnerability encourages innovation and problem solving. Leaders who are open about not having all the answers invite their teams to contribute and collaborate in finding solutions. When a leader sets the example by saying, "I don't know, but let's figure this out together," it sends a clear message that everyone's ideas and perspectives are valued. This approach not only enhances creativity, but also empowers the team to take ownership of the challenges they face. When people feel they have a stake in solving problems and are encouraged to bring their ideas to the table without fear of rejection, the results can be transformative. In the face of adversity or failure, vulnerability is especially crucial. When things don't go as planned, leaders who are able to admit mistakes, learn from them, and ask for feedback demonstrate resilience and humility. Rather than blaming others or hiding behind a facade of invulnerability, these leaders foster a culture where failures are seen as opportunities for growth. This mindset shift is critical in creating a team that embraces challenges and continually strives for improvement. People are more likely to take risks, be bold in their decisions, and push past their comfort zones when they know their leader will support them, regardless of the outcome. In essence, vulnerability is a cornerstone of great leadership. It invites openness, builds trust, and creates a culture where people feel safe to be their authentic selves. Leaders who embrace their own vulnerability not only strengthen their relationships with their teams, but also encourage a more innovative, resilient, and collaborative environment. By showing that they don't have all the answers and that they are willing to learn and grow, these leaders empower their teams to do the same, leading to a stronger, more cohesive unit that performs at its best. Leadership has an inherent power to influence the emotional climate of a team or organization, and that influence is primarily exerted through the leader's behavior and approach to their role. Leadership, in essence, casts a shadow. Whether that shadow is positive or negative depends entirely on the leader's actions. This shadow refers to the culture, mindset, and values that are reflected in the behavior of the leader, which are then mirrored by the team. The way a leader acts, reacts, and interacts with others creates a ripple effect throughout the organization. The leader sets the emotional tone, and that tone directly impacts how the team functions, how it approaches challenges, and ultimately how it performs. A leader's emotional presence is contagious. If a leader is calm, composed, and focused in the face of adversity, that sense of steadiness will translate to the team. People will take their cue from the leader and will be more likely to maintain their composure when they face challenges themselves. On the other hand, if a leader is reactive, anxious, or erratic, that energy will spread throughout the team, creating an environment where stress, fear, and uncertainty dominate. In this case, the emotional state of the leader becomes a model for the emotional state of the team. People will be more inclined to act out of fear, make hasty decisions, or avoid taking risks, all of which stifle innovation and hinder productivity. The emotional tone set by the leader is also evident in how they manage conflict. Leaders who handle conflict with empathy, clarity, and patience set a powerful example for the team. They show that conflict can be resolved in a constructive way, where people feel heard, understood, and respected. This kind of leadership encourages open dialogue and collaboration, where team members are not afraid to address issues and work through disagreements in a healthy manner. When leaders remain calm and objective, they create a culture where people approach conflict with the goal of resolution, not avoidance or confrontation. Conversely, if a leader reacts to conflict with anger, frustration, or defensiveness, it sends a message that conflict is something to be feared or avoided. This emotional reaction can create an environment where team members become reluctant to address problems directly, leading to unspoken tensions and unresolved issues. The result is a team that becomes less effective in problem solving and less cohesive in working toward shared goals. The emotional shadow cast by a leader also affects the level of trust within a team. Trust is built when a leader shows consistency in their actions and behavior, particularly during times of stress. A leader who remains calm and composed, and who treats people with respect, builds trust with their team. On the other hand, a leader who is unpredictable or frequently changes their behavior based on their mood creates an environment of uncertainty. In such an environment, team members are likely to become hesitant, not knowing how their leader will respond in any given situation. This hesitation leads to a lack of ownership, a decrease in initiative, and ultimately lower performance across the team. The most effective leaders understand the impact of their emotional presence and take responsibility for the atmosphere they create. They know that their mood, tone, and actions are not just personal reflections, but collective influences. Leaders who are mindful of their emotional state and how it impacts others are able to create an environment where people feel empowered to do their best work, take risks, and be innovative. When the leader's shadow is one of confidence, trust, and calm, the team will mirror these qualities, leading to higher performance and stronger collaboration. Ultimately, a leader's emotional presence sets the tone for how the team operates on a daily basis. Whether positive or negative, the emotional shadow that a leader casts profoundly shapes the culture and performance.